What's going on, everybody? Thralls of Metal here. I'm Jammin Jon, bringing you part 2 of my top 40 albums of the year. On the last video, you saw me do albums 40 through 26. Killer year for metal, as you're going to see here with my numbers 25 through 11. I'm not going to talk a bunch because I did that already, so I'm just going to get down to it. Album number 25, Tombmold, with The Enduring Spirit. Obviously a stark departure from the sounds that initially got me into Tombmold. They've lost some of that just brutal, crushing death metal edge and have gone a little bit more melodic and a little bit more prog. Me personally, I really fucking love it. Derek Vela has done such a great job playing his guitar. I know he said during the pandemic he was just going to settle down and really teach himself more of his craft, and he did just that. And you can tell that he went through and listened to a bunch of proggy, super guitar-y albums, obviously, because it was that damn good. Now, I know Tombmold has recently appeared in the quote-unquote news for looking like dorks in a photo. Who cares? We are all dorks. I'm a dork, Nick is a dork, and most of you are dorks for things other than metal. I'm proud to be a dork, you should be proud to be a dork, and obviously they're proud of being dorks. Nonetheless, there is a definite hike in musicianship here. Max's drum work. Mwah. The fact that this guy growls while he plays and screams and does a whole bunch of other crap is ridiculous because the drum lines are insane. Some songs for me: Fate's Tangled Thread, that fusion-y jam that's in there is a chef's kiss. Will of Whispers is like a death metal Exvius. Flesh as Armor is more death metal with some thrash in it. Servants of Possibility is a real banger. Overall, this record was a treat to listen to. While I might be fully out to lunch on their departure from the crazy dissonant death metal that got me into them, I'm definitely standing behind this record. It is a banger. Check it out. Coming in at number 24, Rotten Sound with Apocalypse. First of all, duly titled. It sounds like what I assume will be the music of the apocalypse. Admittedly, I, prior to this record at least, was not completely into Rotten Sound. After jamming this record, I realized that I am missing out. I am a gigantic grindcore fan, and these guys are no slouch in that department. For me, with this record personally, it's just the unrelenting beatdown, the snarling, grimy mix. To me, it sounds like if Fossilation was a grind band. There's a good flow to this album. It doesn't sound disjointed amidst the chaos. The song Shaving, obviously the breakdown in that song. Denialist with its slow, groovy, heavy start. And Fight Back, which reminds me of old school hardcore band Vision of Disorder. Once again, it's really tough to nail down a grindcore band as it is lightning speed, and still going back and listening to this record and at least writing the notes for it and whatnot, I realized that I still can't grasp a hold of it, but this record whoops ass nonetheless. So number 24 for me, Rotten Sound with Apocalypse. Coming in at number 23, Enforced with War Remains. These guys just keep swinging hard and throwing chairs in the process. Of course, crossover, death thrash, whatever you may have it, unrelenting riffs, killer groove. Knox sounds like a feral madman, like he normally does anyway, but I think on this record he just sounds a little bit more unhinged. There's some overall tweaks to the mix, but everything sounds a little bit more dialed in my opinion. While I may not like this record as much as Kill Grid, it is still a banger of a fucking album. We saw these guys live this past year at Full Terror Assault, and it was absolutely devastational. If those cages could have toppled over at Full Terror Assault, Knox was going to be the one to do it. It didn't happen, but if it did, people would have gone to the hospital. Moving onward, coming in at number 22, Devangelic with Zool. From the rip, it just seemed more focused to me. Like, I've been listening to these guys for a while, but as far as them honing in really on one sound and incorporating some elements of their past, I think this is the record to do it. They've been toying with the sound they have now anyway. I think they just finally kind of solidified it. Even in the slammy moments, there's still an evil atmosphere. I'm sure many people have said it. I'm sure Nick probably said it. I'm going to go ahead and say it again too. In a world without a new Nile album, I give you the new Devangelic. Evil, sinister, gross riffing, done at the speed of light. The song You Dug Hool Incantation, I think that's how you say it, I don't know. The dark heavy grooves in there. Sirius Draconis Capricornus, that constant melodic riff. Worship of the Black Flames with the continually building breakdown. Shadows of the Iniquitous with the savage, chuggy, melodic breakdown. This record as a whole, from start to finish, is a non-stop pummeling, and I am totally on board with it. So once again, number 22, Devangelic with Zool. Coming in at number 21, Baroness with Stone. This is quite possibly, at least in my opinion, their best, most cohesive, heartfelt album really ever. Heavier riffs, beautiful melodies, awesome vocals. I've never been a fan, really, of the vocals of Baroness, at least not all the way, because I thought at times he's like a little bit off key or maybe reaching for some notes. And I mean, he tries anyway, and that's great. In this case, having Gina more present in the vocals was a great move for them. The contrast between the two of them, the harmonies that they hit are great. Last Word, of course, reminds me of Mastodon. All these choruses, by the way, are super catchy. I love Baroness and their ability to write songs with catchy choruses. Beneath the Rose, between the drum work and the syncopated riffing and those like vocals that sound like he's yelling through a bullhorn, I just find that to be really cool. Choir, with the continuation of the riff from Beneath, and then that main riff and the groove and kind of that Western vibe on it. Those were the songs that I took away. But overall, I think this record is fucking amazing. If you guys haven't heard this album yet, even if you're not Baroness fans, check out this record, because I guarantee you're going to find something in here that resonates with you. So yeah, number 21, Baroness, Stone, check it out. Crazy. We've been through 20 albums, which means there's 9 albums left to talk about in this video, and then we get down to the top 10, the records I thought that slayed the most. We're not quite there yet, though, and so I give you number 20 on my year-end list for 2023, Sulfur Aon with 7 Crowns and 7 Seals. Another powerful, awesome entry in the Sulfur Aon catalog, albeit there's not many in the Sulfur Aon catalog. This record is no slouch in that department. Everything here sounds gigantic, epic, and sometimes triumphant, which is bizarre when you talk about a death metal album. The melodies, the harmonies, and all the dense layers are music to the ears. Very well composed songs, tons of chug, tons of awesome tremolos, great song structure, very much like Morbid Angel, Dissection, a less polished Garia, and even some Nile. Seems like the name Nile is making itself known in the rankings this year, even though they didn't put out a record. It's obvious that, many people enjoy that band. I enjoy that band. Whatever. Awesome riffing, blazing drum work, killer lead melodies, killer tremolo melodies. Every song is a banger, even in the quieter moments. Usurper of the Earth and Sea with the Middle Eastern melodies. Arcane Cambrian Sorcery, very Morbid Angel, extremely heavy, pretty harmonies. Beneath the Ziggurats, I think that's how you say that. That is my favorite song on the album, an epic, behemoth-like chuggy beast. Sulfur Aon kicked everybody's ass with this album. I listened to this record quite a bit. I'm sure I will continue to listen to this record quite a bit. If you have not heard this album, you are missing out. Number 20 for me, Sulfur Aon's 7 Crowns and 7 Seals. Number 19, Axioma, with their EP Primal Descent. Of course, only 4 tracks. I mixed my EPs in with my albums, but this one I couldn't possibly leave off of my list at all. First of all, they're kind of like our neighbors from Cleveland, Ohio. The blackened atmospheric death metal neurosis is what I would call Axioma. And with every release, I feel like these guys keep getting better. Now, notably so, I didn't get into them until their 2020 release, Sepsis. But when I fell in love with Axioma, I fell pretty hard, as noted by the fact that it was in my end-of-year list for 2020. Dark, chuggy, tremolos, polyrhythms, angular riffs, everything sounds evil and sinister. For me, of course, it's the title track on here, Primal Descent, and Spectre in the Code. This band is amazing. We, of course, got to see them a couple times this year. They played a show for us in Bowling Green, and then we went out to Cleveland on their dime to go check them out. Have become somewhat close with their guitarist, Justin. This is just a great band. If this EP is a precursor at all to what's coming for the next LP, I am 100% on board. Nonetheless, this EP whoops ass. Axiom, Primal Descent. Coming in at number 18, a band that's become a personal favorite of mine over the last couple years, Fossilation with Leprous Daylight. While they strayed from death doom a little bit and they made it into more death metal, God in heaven, it is still as gross as all get out. It is steeped in filthy atmosphere, in the vein of Primitive Man as far as like the caustic nature of these songs and just the overall atmosphere. Tons of chugs. It seems like they cleaned up the mix ever so slightly. Like I just found there to be a little bit less in the realm of like dissonant atmosphere and more focused towards the actual instrumentation. The guitars seem a little bit chunkier, the drums seem to hit a little bit harder. Still, the vocals, again, gives Ethan from Primitive Man, I think, a run for his money. Still, nonetheless, a good mix of chug and tremolo and dissonance, just the way I like it. Once again, I haven't get to say chug and dissonance too much on this ranking, but I get to say it now because this band has a ton of it. Songs like Once Was God, At the Heart of the Nest, the title, Leprous Daylight, and the song Aeon are just killer tracks. They're the ones I love the most. However, if you guys haven't heard this is a pretty good place to start. So, Fossilization with Leprous Daylight at my number 18. Coming in at number 17 is the new Cattle Decapitation with Terracite. Not quite what I expected coming off of Death Atlas, as I thought they lost a little bit of that blackened edge. While it still exists in here, it just, I don't know if it went exactly where I thought it was going to go. Nonetheless, it is still heavy as fucking fuck, with tons more mid-tempo groove moments. Something that I've always liked about Cattle Decap is their way to break it down and get into a nice, slow, heavy groove. And albeit it's not always like the slowest thing, the groove is definitely there in a slower sense. There's a ton more of that, which is really cool. But it is still so tight in the process. Packed full of just absolutely nasty riffs. Of course, the song We Eat Our Young, The Insignificance, The Storm Upstairs, which is heavy as balls, Aphotic Doom. Once again, I could name all the tracks on this record too, but I'm not going to. Of course, we saw these guys on their past tour with Immolation, Sanguis Sugabog, and Castrator. Seeing Cattle Decap live is such a treat. I'm so excited that I got to see them on this tour. They played mostly songs off of both Terracite and Death Atlas, which is what I wanted to see anyway. So, yeah, this album was a banger. It's Cattle Decap. They really don't have too much bad going for them, period. This record was no slouch. If you haven't checked this out yet, I don't know what you're doing, because this has been promoted everywhere. They've been on tour. It seems like Cattle Decap is blowing up right now, and with good reason, because my number 17, Cattle Decap with Terracite. Coming in at number 16, The Ocean with Holocene. Although not a typical sound for them, this just seems more heartfelt and emotional. The lyrics are very poignant. Lots of lush synths versus like the typical, drum and bass and things that would normally make this post-metal band a thing. Not a lot of guitar going on, but good, big, lush, warm synths. Although it's very dark and emotive lyrically, I find the music to be rather hypnotic. The song Atlantic is just that. It's mostly synth-driven. It took me forever to figure it out, but it reminds me of the opening music in House of Cards. If you've ever seen that show, actually, the synth work and even like the lower bass register is closer to that, I thought at least, of House of Cards. Nonetheless, I find that song to be incredibly awesome, very hypnotic, into Saboreal, which is heavier, but still has a lot of the same groove. And the beauty of the female vocals in Unconformities, I think her name is Karen something or other, Not 100%. I'll put it up there. Anyway, yeah. Albeit this record is not typical for them, I found myself listening to it over and over and over again. It sounds great in the car. So, yeah, you're going to want to listen to it. Number 16, The Ocean with Holocene. Coming in at number 15 from Indianapolis, Indiana, Flesher with Tales of Grotesque Demise. I'm sure you saw when we reviewed this record, just plain heavy goodness. Tons of chuggy riffs, very cavernous vocals, about as meat and potatoes old school death metal as it gets, but to me it's all the best parts of that. Like, it's nothing but just heavy breakdowns and chugs. You get some death doom moments here and there. Very much to me just the best parts of bands like Frozen Soul and Tribal Gaze and Mortician. Like, these guys obviously wear their influences fairly heavy on their sleeve, but I definitely don't mind that. Creature Beast with that giant big death doom breakdown. Wisconsin, every breakdown in that song. And really, this whole record is nothing but a giant chuggy riffing breakdown. And I love that about these guys. We've seen these guys a couple times now. They played a show for us at Pierre's in Fort Wayne. We've seen them at Full Terror Assault. We saw them at Heavy Hell. If you guys aren't hip to Flesher, you're missing out. This is a great album. Again, the heaviest of the heavy old school death metal. I highly recommend it. That's why it is number 15 for me. Coming in at number 14, a band that Nick hipped me to, that has one of our buddies in it that has another YouTube channel, The Glorious Dead with Cemetery Path. Our buddy Marty Worm plays guitar on this. It is a killer album, and it's really cool to have the vinyl too, because you get to see all the nasty ass artwork. To me, this is like the perfect mix between Morbid Angel, Bloodbath, Immolation, and Incantation. And if you're a fan of any of those bands, there's a good reason that I say that, because this record sounds like just that. Tons of syncopated chugs, nasty tremolos, catchy melodies, blast beats, groove, evil, sinister breakdowns. Horizons of Ash, of course, reminds me a lot of Immolation. Purulent Forms, so much chug in that song. Dragging the Dead, very Morbid Angel. Cemetery Path, at least the breakdown is very Incantation. This was such a treat to listen to, and albeit I'm not as close with Marty Worm as Nick is, I'm just happy to know the man and happy to have this band, and I ended up jamming this quite a bit because it sounds so close to a small myriad of other bands that I'm already in love with anyway. So if you're a fan of things like Morbid Angel, Bloodbath, Incantation, Immolation, things of that nature, it's probably pretty fitting that you will be into The Glorious Dead. Check it out for yourself. My number 14. Coming in at number 13, Black Braid, with the album simply titled Black Braid 2. My first exposure to this band. This, again, in my opinion, are all the things I like about black metal. Riffy, chuggy black metal. It's not a constant tremolo drone, which is fine, and I realize that that has its place in a lot of black metal and a lot of metal itself anyway. I'm not necessarily shitting on that, but the way that they did this with the awesome melodies and harmonies along with the chug, the grooves hang out quite a bit. The songs are catchy in a very lush, layered atmosphere. Killer drum work. A bit more than just in the pocket. Everything that's accented as far as the syncopated chugs go, or just the change in tempo to some of these grooves, I thought was just executed perfectly. The songs have more of a prog-like structure to them, which I was really entertained by. The Spirit returns with the verse melodies, spells of moon and earth, the native instruments and the instrumental, moss-covered bones on the altar of the moon, that 13-minute, 30-second opus, and then the twilight being almost doom. The band has done a good job to cover all their bases and cover them well, and make it so that the earworms kind of stick in your brain, which is what you want. We saw these guys these past year with Wolves in the Throne Room in Garia, and it was an absolutely awesome experience. It was everything I'd hoped for as far as a live setting. These songs translate very well live. If you haven't seen Black Braid yet, you definitely want to go out and see them. And if you haven't heard this record yet, once again, you are missing out. That is why it is, for me, at number 13. Coming in at number 12, Nightmare with Deformity Adrift. While my initial ratings weren't incredible for this record, it grew on me. I of course am a gigantic Nightmare fan anyway. When I first heard their LP, Cacophony of Terror, I pretty much instantly fell in love. I think it appeared on like the first or second version of What's John Jamming. I've always loved this band anyway, and while it didn't initially sit real well with me as far as just overall album content, it came on random on Spotify all the time. It's like Spotify knows me. They know I love Nightmare. They might as well play it over and over again. And as I listened to it over and over again, I was like, yeah, this is pretty fucking good. It's a pitch black album. Completely void of light. Why wouldn't it be? It is very nightmarish. Hence the reason it's called Nightmare. It is heavy as fuck. Steeped in dissonance. My all-time favorite thing, steeped in dissonance. It's slower. It's more atmospheric. Still down-tuned, chuggy goodness. I just thought it was missing the punch that Cacophony of Terror had, but nonetheless, it is still a great album. Throw of Illicit Withdrawal, that breakdown in that song is crazy. Taboo Fell, I think I'm saying it right, the one that kind of sounds like Godflesh. That song really grew on me. I found it kind of annoying at first, but now I really, really enjoy it. The song Hammer of Desolation. Of course, if I had the album sitting here in front of me, I'd be able to tell you more, but I don't because I'm a loser that doesn't have the album. Yet, anyway. Regardless, I really enjoyed Deformity Adrift from Nightmare. They have, over the years, become one of my favorite bands, and it was a pleasure to listen to the album. It's a pleasure to have it on the list, and it's going to be even more of a pleasure to receive it in the mail as soon as Christmas is over, or Santa comes, or reindeers, and Clark Griswold. Alright, good talk. Coming in at number 11, the last album that I will put on this video at least, Unearth with The Wretched, The Ruinous. I've been a fan of Unearth since, The Oncoming Storm, and that was out in 04, 05, something like that. I've been a fan of Unearth for a very long time, and then they just kind of fell off. For me personally, after The Eyes of Fire, I stopped listening to them. I don't know exactly what the reason was. Maybe it's because the record after The Eyes of Fire didn't hit as hard. I don't know. I lost track of them for a long time. And then they come out with this beast. Brought back the nostalgia. They crushed the metalcore scene. These guys have still got it, firing on all cylinders. Of course, now you've got Buzz McGrath taking the lead on a majority of the riffs. And what incredible riffs he wrote. I think this is the best album since In the Eyes of Fire. When we saw these guys a couple months ago with Revocation here in our hometown, Toledo, Ohio, at Frankie's Inner City, actually, Unearth's drummer was being shared with another band, and for the life of me, neither Nick and I can remember what the hell band he's being shared with. Ash Pearson from Revocation ended up playing drums with Unearth and absolutely crushed it. I mean, these guys still have it. Eradicator, Mother Betrayal, the breakdowns in that song, Dawn of the Militant with the breakdowns, and blast beats. This record crushes. It brought back all the wonderful nostalgia for me. Again, I think the best since In the Eyes of Fire. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. I'm not LeVar Burton, but I would check it out because I think this record is killer. That brings me to the closure, at least, of this video. 25 through 11 now down in the books. My top 10 is coming next. Now, I have to edit these videos, and I fucked up a bunch on this video, so it's gonna take forever, but when you see it, know that I put in a real labor of love, because that's what we do here at Thralls of Metal. If you guys like what you saw, please hit the like and subscribe button. We would really appreciate it. It always helps us out. We are also on Patreon. If you would like to help us out there is a link down below to thrallsofmetal.com. In thrallsofmetal.com, you will find the link to our Patreon, which is also on our page. We just decided to hit you with a little double Patreon action. We have shirts. We have old shirts at a discounted price. We have hats. We even have, I think, a few shirts left from our original run, also at a discounted price. So yeah, if you would like to help us out there and you want some Thralls of Metal merch, Patreon's the place to do it. Also, last but not least, thank you to all of you guys. This has been such an incredible year for Thralls of Metal. We not only picked up a bunch more subs, we had a video go viral on Instagram, got to meet a ton of great people, got to go to a ton of killer shows, This channel would not be what it is without each and every one of you, and we all thank you. I especially thank you since I'm the only one down here today. I thank you, but yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for a wonderful year, and we will catch you later.